After considering and then rethinking buying a ring bender and making some rings myself, I started looking around for an already available option and found these 14-inch macrame rings at my local Jo-Ann Fabric. Now, this slab was pretty rough with a good amount of twist, so the first step was to get it flat. I removed the excess from the slab at the bandsaw so that it would fit through my planer, and then got to flattening. To get one side flat, I decided to pull out my low-angle jack plane and put a little sweat equity into this piece. The slab was too wide for my jointer, and I figured this would give me some good hand plane practice. I got the piece mostly flat and then moved over to the planer to get it totally flat. Now there was still a little bit of twist left in the slab, so I had to encourage it through the planer on the first few passes, but I eventually got it flat. After the piece was cleaned up, I carefully traced the inside of the ring onto the piece and then moved over to the bandsaw to cut it to shape. I made sure to really take my time here and stayed well clear of my line on the first pass. I wanted these rings to have a friction fit on the piece, so I really needed to be careful not to remove too much material. I purposely left a good bit of extra material when cutting the piece on the bandsaw, so next I moved over to the oscillating belt sander to slowly sneak up on the fit. After about 15 minutes of sanding, I got the exact fit I was looking for and went ahead and added all the rings. And since they were so tight, they really didn't need any kind of adhesive, but I added a few spots of CA glue off camera just for a little extra insurance. With the rings fitted, I went ahead and sanded the piece up to 180 grit to prep for finish. After sanding, I applied a few coats of wipe-on poly, which really brought out the figure in this crotch slab. It's just gorgeous. And I love that little bit of remaining live edge. It's just enough to add some visual interest to the piece while still keeping it super clean looking. Once the finish had dried, it was time to install the clock movement. And first I needed to find the center of the clock, which proved to be a little bit tricky. I looked up a few methods online. I'm not going to try to explain them here, but I finally found one that worked for me and marked the center point of the circle. Next, I moved over to the drill press and drilled a hole for the movement to fit through. After drilling the center hole, I needed to clear out an area on the back side of the clock for the movement to fit in. And this recess serves two purposes. First, it recesses the movement and allows the clock to sit flush against the wall. And second, it allows the shaft of the movement to have clearance past the front face of the slab. To create this recess, I used an 1 1/4" Forstner bit on the drill press, and this recess really doesn't need to be pretty since no one will ever see it, and the drill press is a lot less messy than a router, which would have been my other option. And even though no one will ever see the back of this clock, after drilling out the recess, I still cleaned it up a little bit with a chisel, and finally I could test fit the movement, and it fit perfectly. The hands on the movement are white out of the box, but I decided to add a little color pop and spray paint the hands this awesome mint color. Once the paint dried, I permanently installed the movement and then installed a D-ring on the back of the clock before hanging the clock. After that, all that was left was to hang the clock on the wall and get a sweet time lapse to show that the clock actually works. And with that, the clock was finished. Alright, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. This was a really simple project, but I'm super happy with the way it came out. It's kind of nice to get these simple wins sometimes in the shop when you're kind of in between bigger projects. I know I have quite a few big projects coming up, and I've been working on some larger projects in the past couple of weeks, so knocking out a one-day build that was super easy was really, really nice. Alright, thanks again for watching, everybody.